and for people to come and hunt, and they gain. And the last time I checked, we are probably running close into the 330 million in terms of conservancy revenue countrywide, which is something that perhaps a lot of effort needs to be put in place. So based on the stakeholders' engagement, one could easily assess that a lot of involvement comes very much from civil society that is assisting the communities to be able to function and carry out those tasks. But I think the private sector equally needs to come in very strongly so that we can support that element. Now, taking a statement out of the book of the governor from Ohangwena region, where she's really emphasizing on rural tourism. That is now very one of the key aspects that we have not really intensively invested in or give it the attention it deserves. However, there's a very, very critical component in that space, which is obviously your internet, for instance. So if you then have your internet in rural areas with very good coverage, it will then open up a lot of business opportunities. So why do we then say so? So basically, we can then move into listing all our rural spaces into Airbnb. Now,
you do know that it's potentially illegal, the Airbnb thing.
Yes,
because of NTB. In Namibia Tourism Board literally came up with a statement initially about that. That Airbnbs are not so good. I would even say yes for it, but it's potentially. Yeah. Look, it's a hide and seek game, yeah.
Yes, I fully do understand that, and I think on the urban land policy we've unpacked it. But now, the NTB needs to make a statement, and they must pronounce themselves to say these are now the rules, and this is the way we are moving forward. So, and that is.
Oh no, they said it already. Businesses, if a property owner wants to list it as an Airbnb, they must first register with NTB.
Okay.
But the downside is now, you and I know that you can have multiple properties, and you can probably put one under the kid, one under the wife, and then different names. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the for anyone to list on Airbnb, a certificate must be issued to the NB corporation for any individual then to list, so that taxes can be collected. Now, I do know that there are property taxes, and then it's very much based on
the local authority,
on local authority in urban areas.
Yeah.
But what is going to happen now to someone who's generating a revenue in rural areas, not paying rate and taxes and all that? So that is another aspect that the authority needs to start looking into, to say, how do we then create a fair society? So in rural areas, you can make a lot of money equally so, but while the person in an urban area is also equally affected. And I think, and when you look at it, it's much easier to create jobs in rural areas because of the cost of living that is not so high. People have places to stay and all that. So, but and as I said again, the internet equally so, it's a bottleneck. So we need coverage.
Yeah.
We need
it's basically advertising and marketing,
Yes,
exposure.
we need coverage in that space. And only then we will then be able to unlock the rural tourism. Because if you have to do it at the current stage now, you will have to invest a lot in road signs to give direction as to where the property is and all that. But for those that are having internet in that specific location, it will make it much easier. But that is, again, one of the key issues and the key drivers that perhaps to be able to unlock that, the internet coverage needs to come in. And I see that MTC is moving now aggressively to really address that matter. Hopefully your telecom equally so also going to come on board.
Because they both have what? They both have like assignments, not full on projects, but assignments basically to try and close the digital divide.
Yes. So now they equally also then needs to come into that space. The other key driver in rural economics is equally so especially your civil society that looks after that is creating program for people that are on frail care. and they train communities, security issues, small gardening enterprises. All these activities are happening within the rural community. However, they are not properly documented. It's open-ended, it's unknown, it's fragmented. So and it really something really needs to be done. And also then big ups towards government of creating the job which they call food for work. Food for work or some those kind of projects to for fencing and road clearances and all that. So the government is also equally investing in that space. But however, we need to look into other alternative. The other aspects, one of the initiatives during the stakeholders engagement, some of the ideas that came up is the rural economic zone, which operates in a domestic space to be able also equally to export. Now, maybe to take a good example on this so that it can make sense, let's look at the blueberry investment in the rural areas. Now, the blueberry investment, the berry itself, so you can then cordon of that area to say we are going to make it a rural economic zone. Then you then have a dairy in close proximity, and then you have a feedlot for fodder production, and you then create a typical value chain out of it. So now when you produce yogurt, for instance, that yogurt is just in close proximity. It's basically an ecosystem that kind of exists. That is basically what we are saying, a rural economic zone. So rather than to put them at the borders or
to drive it from one town to another,
So that is a kind of approach we need to take in terms of rural economic zones, and where we have green schemes, we can then set up the dependable subsidiary industries around the zoning scheme, so that they can basically then feed in whoever's then doing transportation and all that. So that is the kind of thinking that we need to really to start looking into, so that you are able to create sustainable jobs, because most of the jobs in the rural area is very much seasonal, and it's very much 2 weeks, 3 weeks basis. With that kind of employment structure, it's not as sustainable or as effective as it's supposed to be. So your rural economic zone becomes a very, very important aspects that we really need to look into and to be able to explore. So that, because when businesses are standalone, they are not sustainable. But if they work in an amalgamation, it's a much better it's a much better setup. Now the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I know they've also been very much active in that space, providing some equipments to small scale builders and rural enterprises. Now, when you come to the educational sector, under the economic dimension, or perhaps to say transitioning into the social dimension, is that now we have NTA that is operating in urban areas of the vocational training center, and then equally so, I just lost it now on top of my mind. What is the other institution that also offer similar skills as NTA? But, no, not NIMT.
But they all report to NTA anyway.
Yeah, they all report to NTA. So there's
and then NQA does the other accreditation one.
Yeah, there's an institution that is based in Otjiwarongo, Swakopmund, and Ondangwa that also offer those but they offer it on a short scale basis.
Are they training or
they
accreditation?
Are training.
Okay.
They are training. It's quite but I think COSDEC.
Yeah, COSDEF. COSDEC, yes.
Yes. That COSDEF is basically now.
They are also at Swakop, I think.
Yeah, their head offices in Swakop.
Yeah.
Now we need to find a way that we transition the COSDEF into rural areas, so that they provide training spaces into rural settlements and all that. Because now everyone is competing in urban areas. Now the Ministry of Urban and Regional Planning is also developing youth development centers. Now these spaces is where we need to have those COSDEC activities attached to it, so that we can train our rural youth to be able to do work within the rural residential setup. So that, and they don't need now to go to urban areas to be able to get a skill, but they can empower themselves within the rural training programs. So that is, for me, that is very key, even though there's a lot of activities that are coming from civil society, in terms of health training and all those things, that is there. So we need to acknowledge that it's happening, and how to deal with gender-based violence. Those supporting programs are there. However, most of those programs are now suffering because obviously most of the funding was very much so the American aid program. Most of them are currently busy closing, or they are scaling down. And that could have a negative impact on the rural community, and it can set back our health standards in rural areas, of which I think now with the act, we will then, hopefully the leadership, they will then be able then to come in and to provide perspective to say how they are going to fund those programs that are providing those services into the rural community. As well as the Ministry of Health, again, they are really giving a lot of support in that space to be able to provide the necessary assistance. So now, coming back to the coordination aspect of what we have now highlighted, that now simply means that there's a lot of coordination that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So we do not have really much a centralized body that is collecting all this information and to be able to unpack the information, so that we are able to have a very good understanding as to what is really happening in that space. So the rural policy, despite now that it's really now going a review changes, it becomes also very, very, very difficult to evaluate the assessment and the impact of the current rural policy. So because we do not have guidelines for M&E, I know the National Planning Commission is developing an M&E policy to be able to how to evaluate policies and all that. It's currently, there is a consultant that is working on it, and equally so that for which whenever you are evaluating any policy, there are some standards guidelines in terms of how do you evaluate, how do you then review, equally so. So in the absence of this these policies, so it becomes very, very difficult, as it's pretty much based on interpretation as to how you value the policy. Now, as I said, we don't really have a particular order as to how we are articulating the urban land policy, but as I said, it's all intertwined under the four dimensions. And one of the key critical aspect is now the spatial planning in rural areas. But yet again, the argument of the neoliberalism, sorry for that butchering.
Yeah, no, it's okay, Francisco, don't worry.
The logic of what that theory then brings, it's posing a lot of challenges in terms of development. So as much as we embrace the rural areas, but the urban growth is really putting a challenge in terms of trying to acquire land from the rural community, and it's putting really severe pressure and creating a very dependable approach in terms of food production. Now, this aspect really needs to be managed very well, and this is one of the greatest threat.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at the statistics, the statistics of the NSA of 2023 says that it's the rural community and the urban community is on a 50-50% basis. Now, the 50-50% basis, because how do we then distinguish that? So if I have a surrounding area with a population of 20,000, and then in the current urban boundaries I have 10,000, I then expand the town boundaries, then it becomes 20,000. But the other 10,000 have not been displaced. So they are in the area, it's just that now their land rights have now changed.
Like in Ngurunguru, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So their land rights.
Because in Ngurunguru, I remember, Francisco, just to help you with that discussion, I saw Helmut and I on the home run, we had to dissect the discussion of a national council standing committee that went to Ngurunguru to understand, how does housing happen in Ngurunguru?
Yeah.
Just to realize, the population is 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Majority of the 10,000 work for government offices. Yeah. There's only one or two private sector institutions there, which is like a service station and the local shop right there.
Yeah.
But then the inhabitants, like you explained now, the expansion of the urban limits was now the people were told, listen, you must firstly register the property you're sitting on, that you own, with your little garden and your cattle and your goats, registered in your name. Then they have to pay a fee. Yeah. Registered again in your name, which is another registration, and
you have to pay.
That they still had to pay. So it was a 5,000 and a 6,000. And the community members didn't understand why. They thought that the first initial registration was just, that's it, it's done. Yeah. But that was for you and me. We know it's carrying over, and the second one is in your name. Yeah. Now, here's the next sort of like hidden discussion. Yeah. No one technically also explained to those community members technically that they are now going to pay water and electricity services within the town boundaries, which is the local tax collection mechanism. Yeah. And before that, they didn't have such responsibilities or obligations, which is also part of that particular discussion. Yeah. Just to supplement in, dear listeners, as an example that we've seen over recent years.
Yeah. Now, and that is now again, when we come back now to the data, to the real numbers, is that we don't justify the numbers, the increase in numbers, by displacement, or the increase in numbers in urban area by the change in
a recent
town, but by the expansion of town boundaries. So that also in itself, it's something that we need a clear distinction, and that NSA must start now looking more. They need to dissect the data for us to be able really to understand, and equally so to understand what is the impact of the expansion of the town boundaries.
Yeah.
And then the factor is also the displacement factor. Now, coming maybe back to Windhoek to kind of trying to contextualize it, let's look at, for instance, without being, what is the right word? Okay, maybe I didn't want to use the race issue. Let's take, for instance,
the distribution.
Windhoek West. It was predominantly, white affluent community that used to live there. So when you look at the transaction history on the title deed, you can see is von Bach, all those guys. But as time now progresses and all that, a lot of these guys have then moved out. So where they then moved out, they then moved to Ludwigsdorf and this Kleinwindhoek in those areas. So now the second phase of movement, they move to Finkenstein and
or they go to the coast.
Yes.
Or like the neighbors that we once had here in Seydorf, they moved to South Africa where their daughter was staying.
Yeah.
Because the pension schemes also were like, you're going to call it like conducive with each other. So you can move money from Namibia to there, and then you just go and settle down in South Africa.
Yeah. So now there's a transitional displacement factor that is taking place, of which it's never accounted in our data, that displacement factor, how people are moving and so.
And even the seasonal workers that you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, because those seasonal workers to Ausencare at the south, And they go back, let's say, to Rundu.
Yes. Yeah. So that element is something that we need to start to understand, and to have that spatial understanding, so that we understand our development factors much better. Now, when you look at this spatial planning, little do the headmen in the villages have an understanding about spatial planning and the allocation of land. There is some spatial concept now which the traditional authorities have come up with. So if you're being allocated, say, a 20-hectare portion of land, so on either side of that property, there should be access for vehicular and animal movement on either side of the property. So that is a typical one of the changes that has now come into this rural spatial dynamics. However, the allocations, the management of the land, the deforestation aspect, and it becomes a big problem. So the idea now is to say, what can be done so that we need to address this land management in rural areas. So who is the custodians for that? Yeah. So in urban areas, we know that we have urban and regional planner, but in the rural areas, who is the custodian for such? And I think that's one of the questions that we really need to address, and to make sure that it's extensively covered. Now, the relationship of spatial planning and climate change equally so goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So as more people now are trying to get land in rural areas due to the competitiveness of urban centers, so a deforestation is happening at a very alarm rate, especially in your northern areas, apart now from the Kavango East and West and the Zambezi region, where there's quite a good environmental management activities. Now, despite that, Namibia, as my colleague always puts it, we are one of the countries that is guarding our environment jealously in terms of when it comes to our Environmental Act. I don't know if people are aware of it, but there is so much that the government is doing to be able to manage and to control the environment. But there's always this silent ghost of urbanization that is really starting to create a different aspect. Now, what most people do in rural areas, they try to develop outside the boundaries of urban centers. And doing so, they then build accommodation and provide some needed services for people that are which means that now there will come a stage where there's a stagnant in the numbers in terms of numbers of people paying rate and taxes, because now as the urban dynamics complexity starts to grow, your preference, your alternative will be your outskirts of your town boundaries. Now, when you look in areas such as Ongwediva have attracted quite a huge number of colored communities. Now, surprisingly, on the road that is going to
Oshakati or down?
No, that is going to Onga.
The west, is it westwards or eastwards?
West. No, east.
East.
That is going east.
Yeah.
But it's the back road, not the Ondangwa road. It's the back road. You will see that now. The colored communities, they always like decorative houses, well painted, ornaments, and all that.
Oh no, I was just now back in my hometown of Rebos, and it's just pink and red and yellow and blue and other color. You even going like, now who came up with F-Bob colors? Because there was literally a house that was green and green, with a green roof, green windows, and everything was just drenched in. And I was like, who comes up with these colors? But yeah, I'm not. I'm not knocking people now.
Now you see now the community is manifesting itself in that area. Now, in that rural space, road infrastructure also is a key player, which now government is now busy tarring that road So it means now it takes you 5 minutes to get into to Ongwediva. So now the road infrastructure.
But was there a road there before, Francisco?
There was a gravel road,
yeah.
but it's now 60% out.
Yeah.
So they are busy doing the rest of the 40%.
Yeah.
Now, once that 40% is done, it now means that for you to, from Onga to travel to Oshakati or Ongwediva, it will take you around about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So which means that now there will be more options.
Yeah. And more services being brought. For example, a service station might pop up now there,
yes,
along the road. Yeah.
Yes. So and that is now the one of the good aspects which the government is doing to be able to provide proper roads. And even though it forms, it then basically increase the rural economic activities. However, it's also changing the dynamics in the urban areas in close proximity. So now this spatial phenomenon needs to be managed. We need to look into it. We need to understand it so that we are able to to unpack this issues. Now, there have been some of the datas in terms of the numbers recorded for employment. On the drought relief program, we are looking at between 15 to 20,000. That is what has been the current data that we have recorded. Now, one of the target for the 2012 policy, the target was 60,000. Yeah, but that is only one of the aspects. What we do not know, what is the extent of the recorded of what is not recorded of the drought policy. So in terms of the technical training, thus far across 14 regions, up to 2020, we have close to 40,000 registered students in the VTC. So that is also a very good number. And then obviously we are also seeing a reduction in the rural unemployment youth. The youth program, there's a reduction of it was 50%. We are now sitting at 41% in terms of youth unemployment in the rural sector. So, as I said before, we really need to find a way in terms of how we're collecting this data from the national perspective up to the regional and in close proximity.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the town of Opuwo has a waste management program which they employ youth. And thus far, they've, speaking under correction, they are looking at roundabout having supported 2,000 youth individuals. Now, this youth also equally comes from the outskirts of Opuwo. It's not necessarily that they are stationed in the urban areas. So some of the urban local authorities also equally needs to play part in creating those low entry youth program jobs to be able to activate or to be able to sustain the rural community. Then this will basically then avoid that to reduce the informal settlements. So because now people are able to earn an income and they will come into the city and go back to where they're from. And I think it's a very good initiative. Now, when you look at the collective data of the unemployment, basically we are looking at 65.3%. Collective data then means the potential labor force. It's sitting at 65.3. But as I said, this data is not validated, but it's basically it's more research based in terms of the findings that we are currently doing. And when you look at the land rights registration, so land rights registration, so we mean that people that are occupying lands in rural areas. So we are, to date, I think it's it's up to 2025. We are looking at 250,000. That is the registered land right. So that means that a lot still needs to be done to be able to do the documentation and to be able to address those aspects. Now, let's look at the coastline management in terms of what is the recent development of the town that is up in the coast.
Is it Hendy's Bay?
No, not Hendy's Bay, where they want to.
The Cape Freya.
The Cape Freya.
Yeah.
Now, Cape Freya is a coastline.
Yeah.
So meaning
there's nothing there.
There's nothing there.
And it's in the middle of a national park.
It's in the middle of the national park. Now, however.
But that thing has been on the cards even since the South Africans, Francisco.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, however, it's also the traditional jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So now, when we look at the spatial complexities in rural areas and obviously conservancy, traditional authority. Now, if the traditional authority have given you the mandate, for instance, to say to develop, says no, you can't develop. Obviously, now you need now to do the formalizations of which the Act makes provision for that. If you want to formalize, because almost every land that is now town lands was farmland or some
at one
portion
stage,
at one stage,
or it was virgin land from the get-go. Yeah.
So what I want to bring to the front is that how do we then educate our traditional authorities in these aspects on land allocations, the implications to that. And that is quite very, very dangerous. And hence, because of those loopholes, you can always just make a bold statement to say, the traditional authority have given me a mandate to do it.
And it actually did, you're right.
Yes.
Because the Minister of Environment came and said, no, they weren't consulted by the traditional authority who went and told the project proponent, the company, who was busy sourcing like labor to come and clear out land. And then it was a whole thing at the start of this year. And I was like, I can see the loopholes in the miscommunication. But in actual sense, like you said, the problem starts with there's a lead ministry that has to be engaged, Ministry of Environment. And Ministry of Urban and Rural Development has to approve on a schematic for a new... they technically, under the Electoral Commission's direction, it's known as a constituency. Meaning a town is a constituency of something.
Yes.
Because there's a political leadership that needs to be contested for. But none of these things took place.
So now, this is basically, and we need really to be careful on as much as it sounds like no, these people don't have really the mandate or capacity. Now, this typically can transition to a typical oranje.
It can.
So and we shouldn't take it very lightly. So you can quickly declare your own aspects around it. Now it's the same thing equally. Then that applies the extension of the town boundaries of the city of Windhoek, for instance, because there's a lot of farms, private farms, that are in those spaces, and those guys are now doing their own development.
No, the recent Gazette came out now from City of Windhoek. Okay, not from City of Windhoek, from the government Gazette. Where they highlighted now there's going to be 3 or 4 new pieces of farms that were sold to City of Windhoek to be now allocated as new land for further property expansion. Literally that thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier.
So now, if you on your way to Omea, for instance, just as you pass Omea, I think Omea is also in the town boundaries of Windhoek. As you pass Omea, you will see that there's some industries that are developing, some warehouses developing. Now, those are the guys who have studied the boundaries. So now they are trying to allocate those aspects because they are able to pool services in close proximity. And then across Omea, there's also a private development where you buy 1 hectare for 150,000 and all that.
And just up the road or just down the road, depending on which direction, you find that two strawberry farms.
Yes. So you see, there's those dynamics that are popping up.
And coming this way, you find Krumuk.
Yeah.
It's also another thing.
So there are those dynamics that are now popping up.
Yeah.
You know, so now suddenly those guys are gonna say, okay, fine, if you are not going to assist us, we are going now to ring fence this aspect. Now, this is quite now very, very much dangerous, and these are the loopholes. So what visionaries do, they read the act and they just start developing. They don't even ask to say we are asking. They just start working. So by the time you look at it, it's like you said, no, is it in line with the said, no, here's the law. This is what the law is saying, and all that. Now it becomes now coming back to this rural policy, that how we need now really to safeguard that rural land rights. So and we need to move very, very fast so that there is a clear distinction between the allocation of land. What is the maximum that a traditional authority or a headman can allocate? Now, when you look at Cape Free, for instance, there is very little knowledge in terms of your low water mark and your high water mark. Yeah,
even just about even the literature.
Yeah.
If you go I don't know. Did you find any literature, Francisco? Let me ask you on Cape Free.
No, I haven't gotten anything. So, and Namibia is also moving in the space to finalize their spatial marine framework in terms of how to manage the coastline. So there's now a lot of layers that are coming into this space.
And green hydrogen. Add green hydrogen.
And the green hydrogen aspect. Yeah. So now and the one thing that people perhaps don't understand, the demand of land for green hydrogen to run that, they need huge portions of land. And that's why equally so. Now, when you create those portions of land, who's going to administer it? Is it going to be as registered as a commercial land? That is also one of the intricacies that are there, but I'm sure the authorities are looking into that. Then you have this coastline that is yet it's rural, but it's also governed by different. Well, I can't say very much different because the Marine Spatial Plan is still getting into place, and that actually got activated by the Swakopmund waterfront. That is currently now.
Does that thing still need to expand, that waterfront?
That waterfront, it can't expand inwards because now they are into the high water mark.
Yeah.
Now, once you cross the high water mark, it becomes state.
Yeah.
It's become state.
Because then you move into state land, yeah.
Then you move into state land.
Yeah.
So that aspect, I'm not so sure how far that legal battle is. I hope it's resolved. But then when you come to the developments, it's basically like let's say, for instance, in Warfish Bay, those private fishing companies and all that. I once got a question from one of the commercial banks wanting to understand how I'm going to treat a valuation of a jetty.
Yeah.
And I said, a jetty is not a permanent structure that you can attach it to an asset, even though it's for purpose of use for you of the east to offload your goods. But it's actually you need to lease. It's a leasehold. Yeah, because it's high water mark. So anything in that space is a leasehold. So even if you build a jetty, you basically need to have lease rights, of which is now what the the Marine Spatial Framework is equally now trying to basically address. And coming back now to Cape Free, does the traditional authority have that understanding as to how this aspects then work? Now you have the Minister of Environment to say, no, It's once it's declared a conservancy, it's the owners of that constitute the management of that land. It's around us. Now the question is, who is who? And you must remember the traditional authority are the ones that gave permission for the Minister of Environment to demarcate conservancy. It's not an initiation by the ministry themselves. It's the community that grants the vision of the ministry to basically establish conservancies. Now the conservancies, because we did not distinguish as to what activities falls under the economic dimension under the rural policy. So it's one of those aspects that we also equally know, where do you going to put the revenue streams around? And that is where this issues now needs to be addressed, and there must be an extensive stakeholders engagement, even though the first round already has went through on the stakeholders engagement of the review of the current national rural policy. And I think the community really needs to be aware as to how serious these things are. And we need to really understand these policies for us to be able to provide the appropriate dimension as in terms of its growth. Yeah, I don't know how much time we got left.
No, we're still like a minute and a half.
A minute and a half.
Yeah.
Sure, time goes very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, in conclusion, is that what we really want to do is to bring you all the relevant policies regarding the developments in Namibia, so that you understand what government is doing or what is really happening out there. And I'm always advocating for that. It's really high time that the leadership needs to do a national policy conference to look at
Francisco, to be realistic, how long do you think that week would be?
Yeah.
that week would probably like a month.
No, but the thing is, there's so much happening, and we need to communicate to the audience, to the Namibian people, what is really happening, and so that people can make up their own decision where they want to focus in terms of investment and opportunity. Instead of always having a blank discussion, but we need where the private sector then comes in and they really understand what is the development agenda of Namibia. And I think that is very important for all of us to be able to understand. And I think it's the office of the Prime Minister must really look into this space so that we are able to unpack these issues.
Just 30 more seconds. If you still want to add something, Francisco.
Guys, tune in the coming Saturday. Please let us know which town we need to unpack on Saturday. So we are please contact us on our WhatsApp lines, our social media platform, and we'll be able to engage with you.
100%. On that note, dear listeners, this has been Ulwazi with Francisco here on your number one talk radio station, that being Eagle FM. We'll, as he mentioned just now, see you on this coming Saturday. And after the break, we'll be tuning into the home run with myself and Helmut.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that does not have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Saim, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081 270 3727 or the office number 083 2888 400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Want to know about Namibia's latest business and economic news? Then look no further than The Villager newspaper. The Villager is an e-paper that is published every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for free, directly to your phone or computer. To become a subscriber, simply send a WhatsApp message with your number and email address to 081 200 4144. Be sure to save the phone number as a contact. The Villager, wherever you are.
Eagle FM lets you express your constitutional rights of freedom of expression without fear of favor.
This is actually, to put it mildly, an economic scandal.
Fraud.
Not a fraud, it's a scandal. Why do you give a tender to somebody who does not have capacity to build? Why should you do that? You know a person that doesn't have the capacity to build.
Eagle FM lets you talk.
That's why I'm always telling people in Parliament, let me not take up my Katatura manners.
Right.
Because I grew up in Katatura. And I will not hesitate to tell you off if it is needed to do.
Be part of the debate by setting the agenda.
My response in terms of Rwanda at 6% is that we had been there before. We've had 6% growth before. It's not something that Namibia has not achieved in the past, and it's not something that Namibia will not be able to achieve in the future.
Eagle FM, the eye.
Tune in to The Home Run with Helmut and Dwight on your number one talk radio station Eagle FM and be part of an in-depth discussion on events you didn't know you needed to hear until you do. From Namibia, Africa and around the world. Tune in from Monday to Friday from 4:30 to 6 p.m. only on Eagle FM.
Good afternoon and welcome now to Home Run. That's with Helmut and Dwight, and signing out for those of you that have been listening, for those of you that tuned in from the beginning. You have been listening to different programs, and of course the one that just signed out, that was All Wazi. And they had an interesting discussion, that's a national rural development policy, which somewhat factors into today's discussion. And I'm just starting with it because, they did, congratulate Kavangos of being excellent and taking care of our environment. Yeah. That's the part where I was like, yeah, you got to learn from us. Now, anyway, look, the thing, we don't dominate the security cluster for no reason. We're very good at taking care of stuff. I'm not helping my case here, am I?
Helmut, which security cluster? Let's ask that question.
I don't want to be excommunicated from the region. Anyway, so, but today's discussion is, or more like today's home run discussion is, now I'm saying it somewhat leans into the, rural development discussion that just recently, signed out. But now I'm saying it leans into that direction because we are talking about energy transition in reference to the state of green hydrogen as a source of energy globally in terms of adoption. And the main source of reference in terms of this, or in terms of the green hydrogen adoption discussion, not just adoption globally, and I mean it's globally because the report was compiled by the International Energy Agency. So it's they're going to look at obviously they're going to look at it on a wider scope, not on a national or regional. They're just looking at, but they do look at different, countries' contribution in terms of investment and adoption. But the report is based on the global investment in terms of money, which obviously fits into the infrastructure development associated with the green hydrogen as a source of energy, and draws an overall energy transition picture.
However, We technically had something else for Homran Helmut, just to let you know.
What is that?
Well, our show, obviously, our topic.
The
one talking obviously about a hydrogen perspective.
Hydrogen.
But just before we get into that talking point, Helmut, that's why in many cases I sometimes like a balance of you read on policies, reports, on documents, on legislation sometimes also.
Yeah.
And then you go out in real life, ne?
Not that comparison.
Just like you said, just like you highlighted now, by not being excommunicated from the regions, and said dominance also in the security cluster. Hence, I emphasized which security cluster. But there's a good thing that you also highlighted specifically in that example.
Yeah.
In many cases, we sometimes have to put reality right next to
the theory and the practical application.
Okay, but we know that theory wants to achieve a specific position, right?
Yeah.
So it's always good to use the realities on the ground to try and measure, okay, so how much are we trying to achieve what we said in theory on the ground? Now, the downside is, unfortunately, Namibia is not great on the evaluation and on the monitoring process. Namibia is not. And this was once again emphasized just last week by the Africa peer review mechanism discussion, whereby the APRM Namibia branch was hosted by the civil society guys to basically to highlight, that civil society works very closely with the APRM people. Now, when you are trying to reach goals, let's say you tell yourself, hey, today I would like to walk 35 kilometers because I'd like to increase my heart rate, just to make your body, your heart pump a little, the blood through your body a lot more, and basically to encourage healthy living and exercise and all that other stuff and all that other jazz. There's always something that helps you monitor your progress. Now, we've obviously seen it's technology, consumer technology.
Yeah.
But if you look at a massive countrywide approach, let's, for example, say, Helmut, like this green hydrogen discussion.
Yeah.
Reading through this document, this review document from the IEA,
yeah.
And then I went like, ministerial review. Whose ministry? Oh, championed by the government of Japan. I'm like, oh, okay. Now we can understand why the government of Japan back in May, not in May, back in March, went and released 40 million barrels of strategic oil reserves.
Yeah.
The IEA asked them most. The IEA went most to member countries and asked, guys, let's help stabilize global oil supply.
Yeah.
And then Japan was like, we will make a commitment of 40 million barrels right now. And then they released it.
Yeah.
And then China looked like, you know what, we're not part of this club of the IEA, but we'll also do something. And then America went like, we'll think about it, but we will release something. And then just for me to find out from Jai Shankar last month, the United States under Biden asked India to buy oil from Russia to help stabilize the global oil price.
That's one of the dumb things that I don't understand about politics. When you just stop the war, in that case, then you don't have to,
Then we don't have to force people to do something.
You don't have to fly around negotiating with different countries to release their oil, their storage oil reserves.
But also remember what I said now. Looking at a theory and comparing it to the reality.
Yeah.
Now the theory in that scenario is, let's look at the narrative that was driven. Russia is to be sanctioned. No one should buy Russian oil.
Mm-hmm.
If there were no sanctions and this Strait of Hormuz, this block plus block equals unblock, happened still in 2026.
Yeah.
Namibia should have had the first dibs and option to buy directly from Russia. But Namibia can't buy directly from Russia. But now Namibia is forced to do these other little weird ballet dances and sign strategic 3-month agreements with Vitol, and then other distribution companies pop up. Weird things happen, Helmut. Smoke and mirrors. It looks almost like smoke and mirrors antics. But then you go think to yourself, so in essence, if Russia wasn't sanctioned
and they were participating, aka their oil was
freely flowing,
participating in the global oil,
which it basically still is. It's most the ghost.
Yeah, it's
most the ghost fleets.
I mean, it is still, but there's a lot of technicalities in terms of international law technicalities being exploited by India, and they've been doing it for a while, and it's really beautiful. Now. Look,
it's really beautiful. Why are you complimenting the beauty of strategy, Alvin?
No, look, man, I like technicalities, and when I see them being exploited, I just can't help but laugh, and also at the same time, you want to. You can't help but ask yourself, all these things can be avoided, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we don't have to jump through hoops to trade with each other.
Yeah.
Like both India and Russia are sovereign nations. They can trade with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now Iran has its own resources. It can trade with whoever it wants. But the thing is, it brings us to basically empires. Empires like to run around and preach democracy, human rights, and all that. But it has always been about control. That's the thing. And now you have, you have people that are already filthy rich and fully grown men and women just playing jump rope with the global economy. And the people that are being caught in a crossfire are the most vulnerable.
Definitely.
Yeah, you're talking women and children, and your average income earners. And if you look at the global cost of living and the division between the haves and have-nots. And if you want to be politically correct, but if you want to be hermetically correct, those who can afford polony and those who cannot. So you have you have your new. Now you have
polony is affordable, Helmut. It's now just $25.
Okay, it's scary that you memorize the price, but anyway.
I walk in as a consumer, but I don't walk in as a man. As a consumer, you go look at the price.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are also pink polony and you're also pink polony.
Yeah.
Which one is the better?
Look, the thing is, when it comes to this is what brings us to to asking the questions, questions like the blueprint that we have drawn with regards to any initiative or any project, whether it's national or global. When you look at the blueprint as we have it in the fancy English that we have it in the document, it's impeccable. Everything. I mean, if you just read any piece of treaty, any piece of legislations with regards to how do we achieve global security, for example, the English is spot on. Call them measures of penalizing countries that break international law, international treaties. Everything is well documented, except when it comes to applying those laws. You have a complete opposite. That's where you begin to see that when Namibia violates a certain treaty, for example, that is a signatory to, it's very easy to punish them. But when countries like your just top 5 guys that are on the UN Security Council do the exact same thing, well, no one just does anything.
Yeah.
Now, when the international body is trying to investigate some of the suspected perpetrators in literally disturbing the global security, the military arms and legal arms and financial powers from these developing countries starts basically freezing bank accounts of the investigators, and we can see that with the with a bunch of officials, the top officials coming out of the ICC. So this is then the problem. So you have a bunch of very powerful countries that make the rules, but then they don't want to follow the rules.
Or they start threatening you.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't follow the rules, they just put up some massive PR calling you all kinds of names. But they are doing the exact same thing that you are doing. It's just that, they control, what's that word? The narrative.
Yeah. The narrative.
So the whole thing becomes a narrative war. That's why I keep going back to 2022, 2023, Angelina Jolie's interview with that Turkish journalist and videographer. When she got into the humanitarian space, because she worked for a very long time, for about 20 years with UNICEF. When she get into the humanitarian space, her thoughts were, we're not perfect as a species. We have these laws that we have that were written down, post World War II, and we have the ICC, ICJ, you have the UN, and all its agencies. Now we have civil society organizations, and we have NGOs. So we can work towards getting better. But we have got to start by applying the laws that we have written down. When someone breaks, these laws, it doesn't matter whether they are from a powerful country, powerless country, global north, global south. If they break the law, they have to be punished. Her surprise was when she got in there. She came out of it realizing that, then I came to learn that, there are human rights for these ones and not these ones. And one line that I memorized from that interview was, they say, punishment for this one, but not this one if there are business interests involved.
Oh, no. It's a discussion that we even had here, Helmut, before you and I joined up for the home run. Remember the 3-year-old used in the company document registration as the main shareholder? Remember when you had the show? I think
that was a 5-year-old.
It was a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Remember when you had the home run and I did the business and economic segment?
Yeah.
And we followed it after each other, and we literally had to debate with our callers the same points. You went on a legal perspective. I also went on a quasi-legal to highlight. Listen, if the loophole exists, and there's no plug or stopgap to stop the loophole, then the loophole is legal.
It's going to be exploited,
and it's legal.
It is.
Then the second one was that I came back the next day was about party contributions. Remember? The story I told you about the ECN discussion, and people were asking, but if the ruling party receives a donation, it's capturing, it's state capture. And then you say, how did you get to that leap? Like, how did you get to that leap? Because in the Electoral Act, it literally states there, just go and tell the newspapers, the media, where something that you can track and trace and say, listen, we did this.
Yeah.
We had a press conference. We announced that we received a check of $1 million.
Yeah.
Whether it be from Fish or not, we don't know. But we received a check.
Thank God that wasn't me, but go on.
You see, I also exploited a loophole. Whether it be from whatever particular resource. This is it. Now, here's the discussion. I'm not saying, nor am I sort of like trying to insult the intelligence of many of our listeners. But what people also have to realize is you can see a reality. The law has a reality it also governs. The law doesn't work in an abstract reality that is like the Avengers multiverse situation based on that, which is also something that I also want to correct Angela. I know that you used Angelina like 100 years later, after she made that interview.
Yeah.
But it's also something that people like herself don't realize about the UN.
Yeah.
I always wondered why people thought that the UN should step in and do the role or intervene where a national government is present. And then until the day that I asked the one lady from the UN, local UN Namibia entity here, and I asked her, listen, why do people think that way, or what do you guys do to intervene in something? And then and then they literally said, no, we are here to help the local government. We give some sort of technical support function.
More like recommendations.
They were not voted for.
Yeah.
So they cannot get involved in your local country's issues.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where people got this idea that the UN is some sort of a direct government functionary. Yeah, maybe your government pays its contributions, maybe.
And that's another elephant in the room.
Maybe. But we also have to ask another question.
Well, I know ours does pay.
Yeah, ours does pay. Because it was based upon...
It's calculated basically based on your... and also your economic size.
And your economic size, your GDP size. Yeah. So Namibia pays. But let's, for example, say it's something like Somalia. Let's say it's something like what's the other country? Let's say it's something like, for example, Djibouti. Or it's something... Did you hear Al-Shabaab popped up once again there in Somalia? not that it went anywhere, they probably know each other. The Al-Shabaab neighborhood is probably across the street there in Mogadishu, and the pro-government neighborhood is this side of the street, and they were probably like, you know what, you still owe me a football match. The other guy was like, who cares?
One of the reasons why I have become very lazy to have discussions, especially about terrorist groups these days.
Yeah.
Because more often...
You became lazy? How much? You can't become lazy.
No, I just... actually, it's more of, every time that we have discussion about the terrorist groups, we have been singing the same song. We just look... I don't subscribe to the idea that terrorist organizations are just a bunch of deranged, trigger-happy guys.
Oh, no, those?
No,
oh, no.
They're not.
Oh, no, they are M23s.
Yeah.
They are Lord's Resistance Army.
Lord's what now?
You remember Joseph Kony?
Oh, boy. Look,
I still can't believe he gave himself that kind of a name. Even HD looked at me like, what?
Look, man. The point.
Yes, HD. There was a rebel group there in DRC, Rwanda, by the name of Lord's Resistance Army.
Why sounds like they are resisting the Lord. But look, the thing is, the reason why I become somewhat very reluctant to talk about terrorist organizations and their activities popping up left, right, and centers is we rarely talk about who is funding and arming them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we want to solve that problem, we have to start from there. But then this is something that I have seen from history books. There are a lot of figures from pretty much every revolution that I could watch a documentary and read and read on. If you look at Mussolini's Italy or Nazi Germany, you can look at all these things. The thing is, they just talk about this guy came to power and then did this and this and this and this and this. Now, but the thing is, they amassed a lot of support from the from the general population. Now, what I always want to know is, how did they convince an entire population of very seriously smart people? How did they manage to convince all of these people? There were economic conditions that were created, that were exploited by these leaders.
Yeah.
And more often, economic conditions that started with industries or financial institutions or just big businesses looting the resources to the point where they created this massive gap between the rich and the poor. Yeah. So the poor became desperate. They started siding with whoever spoke the sweetest words. And because that's one thing they all have in common. They are very articulate guys. They are that good, and they're very good at pointing out the problems. And when you live in a country that has an ever-widening economic inequality, then the problems become very apparent and very easy to point out.
Yep.
And as a result, you're going to find yourself, now, when you have an economic environment like that, all it takes is just one wrong guy in the executive office, and you are looking at 10-key tyranny.
Yep.
Now, but the thing is, we just like to look at it from this guy is the bad guy. He came to office.
What kind of tyranny, Helmut? A turnkey?
10-key.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
You're welcome.
Just turn the key.
From
one tyranny to the other one.
Because look, it's like
dial setting.
Yeah, it's like it's like this economic, these economic disparities, these problems that are created by economic inequalities, will just keep piling up to the point where one executive, where one wrong, more like power-hungry executive individual steps into office. By the time that they get into that office, they have all the pieces have been, are in place for them to be a dictator. Yeah. All the pieces have been in place, and that's why dictators don't come to office in, they don't just rise to power in 24 hours. They all have a history behind them, and they have a very strong financing base.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about the money part of things, and not the money part of politics. Let's just talk about the money part of energy. Okay, green hydrogen itself, in terms of financing, needs a lot of investment. And a few days ago, our Minister of International Relations and Trade was in China, telling people how strong.
No, she's still there.
She's still there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Look, I also made the same mistake earlier today because I thought the president already flew back, but then I quickly did a report with David.
Yeah.
And then I had to correct myself in the report because I said at the start, yeah, the president is back, and then late at the end, no, she's still there until the 11th, and I was like,
she's still there until the 11th.
Yeah. So basically, the president went with his entourage, which includes the Minister of International Relations and the Green Hydrogen Program people.
Yeah.
Because China is also expanding into the green hydrogen development, and China is also basically the forerunner of most of the electrolyzer manufacturing.
Of course.
They
have a very strong R&D.
And our Minister of International Relations is out there talking about, no, we have sunlight.
We are selling the wind, man, the wind. Look, the thing is...
Sunlight, I'm like, sunlight?
The world is looking for green hydrogen. Namibia is looking at the sun. That's when I was like, you go, Minister, you got this.
You got this.
We have the strongest winds. I'm like, you see, I told you, you are nailing.
No, but I like our minister's positivity, because she and wherever I've seen Minister Musavi, she's always positive. She's always got this positive demeanor, and it's, I like people like that. That it's people that you can just achieve the biggest of your dreams, Helmut.
And then we went the direction of our green hydrogen program is like, yeah, right, of course, and.
No, guys. We are seriously talking about facts here. We are on factual things here. We're talking facts here.
Look, ever since someone said this said these words to me, follow the money. Yeah. Whoever funds an institution, whoever funds an organization, whoever funds everything, basically, they stand in a much bigger position to control the status quo. Which is why we have breadwinners.
Yeah.
One of the memes I read in December was, in December, when it comes to African families, even if you are the firstborn by blood, if you don't have a job and you show up late, they will yell at you. But if you are lastborn and you show up late, and you don't...
Jobless?
No, if you have a job and you show up late as a lastborn, they will apologize for coming early before you arrive.
Now, what happens if you're a firstborn and you show up late, but you have a job?
No, as long as you have a job. If you show up late, they will apologize to you. For them, they will apologize for coming early.
No, because I don't understand why the lastborns must be afforded any particular respect.
I have to pick a bone with with lastborn.
That's why I'm also doing. I'm also busy picking a bone with lastborn.
Shout out lastborns. Anyway,
look, you guys still need to live life.
They have been living life. Look, as firstborns, Dwight, we were the experiments for raising children.
Yeah, and us, the guys in the middle, we were sort of like, communication channel for the experiments.
No.
We were the refinement processes, Helmut. We were the electrolyzers. We were the filters. You guys were the point of contact. The rest of us in between, we were filtering the situation.
Yeah, you were filtering when they were raising some of us. They had no clue what they were doing. They were just figuring stuff out. Anyway, where was I?
That's what our green hydrogen is, guys. Just to let you know.
Our green hydrogen discussion in China.
Yeah.
It's a very good point to put out there, because one of the things that's pointed out by the International Energy Agency in the 2026 Green Hydrogen Review is investment. Yeah. And we have ties, trade ties, and basically diplomatic relations with China. So taking the ideas there is a good idea. But here's one question I just can't help asking myself. But we have a very we have a very good sunshine exposure, and we have fairly strong winds. And now our green hydrogen environment, or let me just say our green energy transition environment, especially in reference to green hydrogen, is basically dominated by the Europeans in terms of investment.
Yeah.
Now, I would just find it very interesting how the two, will basically compete for space and investment. The two, I'm talking about China here, because I'm sitting there going, okay, these are private companies. Maybe they can work together, but there's one thing that will not get out of the way: the politics.
No, it's not. No, it won't. Not. It will never happen.
Yeah.
It's on such a level. Yes, politicians still have a key role to play. If you're living in Peter Thiel's reality, politicians are not there. I'm sorry, guys, but unless you know who Peter Thiel
Peter Thiel is nuts.
Yeah, Hamid. Until you told me about his buddy, and then I realized he and his buddy together are not just nuts; they are literally deranged.
Who's Alex Kapp?
Yeah, the guy that wrote the document that scared you.
Yeah, look.
The document with what? How many points?
24-point manifesto. They put it on their X page. Look,
they put it on the other crazy bras page website.
Okay, look. The thing is, this is something I think I think it was the Indian External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar said about I believe that was about George Soros, that he's not just opinionated; he's opinionated and dangerous. But here's the thing: this is the thing that you find in a lot of people that has power. Now, anyone that is basically filthy rich, like you have like you have people like George Soros. I don't pay much attention to what he does. I know he's involved a lot in the, he's involved a lot with NGOs.
Yeah.
But I'm more paying attention to rich guys that are in tech. Because tech is spreading all across, the spheres of our lives. So I always want to find out and understand who is in charge. And then the closer I look at people like Alex Kapp, Alex Kapp and Peter Thiel, the more I realize, okay, you know what? It's not the technology is not the problem. It's who's running the technology who is literally nuts.
And now the ideas that they are getting. Since everybody is now paying for their tech and loves their tech and their product, and now suddenly you have to start hearing about how the human race needs to be controlled. Can't you just be for once, just be a quiet, silent billionaire? Now we need to hear, like for example, with Bill Gates and his antics. Bill Gates that's now become in the US the largest private landowner, and then if the people go interrogate why. No, he wants to control and run the American food industry alongside Mondelez. Then you sit there thinking, dude, do you have nothing to do? Don't you want to go and experiment on Pluto or something?
No, I think it's something that comes with a lot of money and power.
Yes,
yeah.
It really does.
Something that comes with a lot of money and power.
You are right. It does come with a lot of money and power. I mean, Bill Gates has Namibia's GDP. And you can multiply it into infinity even. What's his name? The richest African who denies that he's an African. But we all know he's an African because his dad is an MP for the DA in South Africa. Elon Musk believes he needs to outbreed the rest of the world. Oh yes, that's one of his insane ideas, guys. He's literally an African championing an African value on an international platform. Did you hear that he was also offering his genes to rich friends?
He's right.
These rich guys, they do weird stuff, bro.
Yeah, I think that's one interesting thing about money and power on that level. It's like you run out of things to do with it. And now, look.
Definitely they do.
Yeah, they have just run out of things to do with it because that's why I now one fascinating idea about the whole idea of colonizing Mars, for example, and energy transition. The reason why I subscribe to the energy transition, just in general, not just in modes of transport. Is that energy transition for me makes sense because we are talking about saving the planet we are on. But if we are talking about colonizing Mars because Earth is dying, even if Mars was as green as the equatorial rainforest, you don't think running there is just will just be you creating the very same problem that ended up ruining the atmosphere on this planet to Mars? You first have to figure out, okay, if the Earth's atmosphere is heating up, why? What are we doing? Except we don't want to have those discussions, because every time that we talk about, okay, you know what, let's talk about energy transition, let's talk about green hydrogen investment, adoption, and all these things. The companies that make money from chemicals that basically cause this issue that we would like to transition from, they are not going to stand there and say, you know what, we agree with you. And we have seen this with the, with the more of an international collabo to regulate the production of plastic, plastic usage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time that convention is held, it was held in 2024, it was held in South Korea. Well, the companies representing fossil fuel guys were just, they would not hear any of it. Now, the companies that the individuals that mostly came from from environmental environmental lobby groups.
Yeah.
Now, they were talking about, you know what, let's just cut the production, because we know what the problem is. It is not rocket science. It's simple. Plastics are causing issues like crazy, especially, and they're very specific, especially, carriage bags.
Yeah, and microplastics.
Yeah. Now, we have now garbage patches the size of islands scattered all across the world ocean. So the problem is obvious. The solution is figure out an alternative form of carriage materials, and we have seen a lot of. Even here in Namibia, we have we have paper bag type of carriage. Yeah. Now I know when I say paper bag, my people will start thinking about my rondopi, not that one. It's a different bag.
Huh?
You need a reference, man. Now.
What did I say, Helmut?
Myron. Myrondopi.
What is that?
It literally translates to where is it going to climb? As in, we don't have space for this thing in the car because it's too big. So we're gonna put it.
Myrondopi. Now, what does it have to do with a paper bag?
No, the thing is, paper bag, especially for a lot of people from my region, especially my part of the constituency. When you say paper bag, they're thinking about a whole different type of bag, not one that's literally made out of paper.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, so we have now there's one grocery store I think we're all aware of, even here in Namibia. When you go shopping there, you get a literal paper bag. It's made out of, it's made out of paper. So that would be an excellent idea, except
and you pay for it.
Yeah, except when environmental representatives were talking about just cutting the manufacturing, the manufacturing, because it's the main problem. The representatives of oil, of oil giants kept saying absolutely not. So why? It's because you can imagine that's a multi-billion-dollar industry on its own. So if it makes money, we are not moving away from it anytime soon.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is why it took over a century, if not more than that, to end slavery. People were literally selling people, and they found ways to defend it because they were making money off of it. And now the fact that we are basically fighting to transition for energy transition, this is not new. One thing that is that's basically traceable all throughout history, especially when it comes to people, is when we figure out a money making mechanism. Even if we are told it's bad for the environment, we'll just keep doing it because, well, who wouldn't? Now. The plastic convention discussion was held in South Korea in 2024. They postponed it because they could not reach a unanimous consensus because environmental representatives were saying let's stop production, and the oil representative guys were saying let's limit production, and then they could not reach a unanimous consensus. So it was shifted to somewhere around November, December in Switzerland last year. It did not happen again. It didn't. So you have this whole main discussion we have here is we know what the problems are, we know what the solutions are, but the solutions literally cost the global economy a heck a lot of money, which means the implementation is going to take, and actually that's the good part of this whole the whole transition. It's a gradual process, because we can all agree that if you did it in 24 hours at the press of a button, you'd collapse the global economy, and you end up with the Hunger Games on your hands.
I don't think we'll get to Okay. Wait. How much isn't Hunger Games based upon governments that went to a war situation that erupted into a nuclear? It's literally like a fallout situation.
No, I'm talking about not the beginning part of Hunger Games, like the what happens to society when everything is in disarray type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because usually my idea of when society is in disarray, I think of Mad Max.
Oh no, that's worse.
But that's water and oil.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. But
oh, it is funny. It's my favorite part in that movie.
Which one? The new one or the first three of Mel Gibson?
No, the first three.
Yeah.
So, why is it difficult and very painful to have discussions like, the discussions that have investment in it? Because that brings a lot of questions in relations to Africa's participation. Yeah. When you talk about anything else, Africa is at the top of the chart, but when you bring up investment, it's a whole different discussion. We can come up with a plan. Okay, you know what? This is electric cars discussion all over again, and a report by the International Energy Agency, they also did a report which we talked about on this topic. Now, now in their electric vehicles report, one thing they looked at was where the new markets are emerging, and where which part of this of this whole new technology is on demand in terms of participating for economic purposes, and that was the battery technology.
Yeah.
And then the battery technology and the charging technology. The battery in terms of extending its longevity and and basically power, and the charging for the charging technology is about how to make it charge faster. Yeah. Those are now. So you are looking at, you can either participate in in R&D or manufacturing of the car as a whole, or the battery technology, or the charging technology. Right now, these three are topping the chart. We are not participating in either. Not in R&D.
Well, we're also not participating in who is using the hydrogen.
Which is why I referenced that. So every time we have a discussion that talks about, that has the word investment in it, we are all looking to the global north. And when we borrow money, we bring that money here, and we know how we do it. Steal the money, send it back there for storage. Buy iPhones with 2 SIM cards, and we just we meet every February and start talking about how can we make Africa better. Really?
Or we go and tell Italy, start putting your money where your words are.
That coming from an African will never get old.
Yeah. Basically.
So, investment. And also for, there are only 2 ways to have this discussion. Whether it's the electric car report from the IEA, or the or the green hydrogen review. There are only 2 ways to have this discussion on from an African perspective, and that's one, emerging market, because we don't control, we don't manufacture much of the technology that we use. Take cars, for example. If the change in the internal combustion engine with regards to the energy that it requires to run is changed in Japan or Europe, all we can do is adopt. Yeah.
It won't even be a discussion, Helmut, of how do we approach the the participation in industrial perspective.
Yeah.
Because obviously the companies that exist today will have the means of adoption and adaptation the easiest to achieve because they have the money,
Yeah.
the jobs, the political lobbying capability
Yeah.
to basically just go from a combustion engine to a hydrogen engine.
Yeah.
Now I read over the weekend. There's this one website that speaks primarily about hydrogen developments, and it recently spoke about at one particular sort of like industrial fair how what's his name? Hydrogen fuel cells are slightly more expensive than a hydrogen combustion engine. And I was like, okay, because with a fuel cell one, it's literally almost, it looks almost like a battery that is filled with this hydrogen.
Yeah.
Whereas the hydrogen combustion one is literally like, you understand your conventional engine today, you know, it's moving part. Okay, not moving parts as I was told, but it's literally, it ignites the fuel source, you know, through the pistons and all that. Because this action that I'm doing is basically the piston action.
The piston's moving.
Yeah. So the research and development is happening in such levels now. We don't see it here in the forefront. We don't hear about it easily unless these companies and their research developments basically announce and release their works. You also don't get to see primarily how the technology is functioning in action. You know, how it moves, how it transports you from point A to point B, how it basically performs under certain stress functions.
In certain environments.
And under certain environments, under certain temperature conditions. For example, the engine that Porsche developed that can run on hydrogen. I just don't know if it's a hydrogen fuel cell or if it's a hydrogen combustion engine. So they tested a prototype Porsche, Helmut, a SUV prototype in the Chilean desert. Now the facility that manufactures the hydrogen fuel is in Chile. Then BMW went and tested another hydrogen powered SUV. What was that? Where was that? Also in somewhere here in Eastern Europe as well, under different conditions. Remember now, Porsche took it to a desert, extreme heat.
Yeah.
BMW took their SUV, which is an it was either an X5 or an X3 hydrogen prototype. They took it now to other particular conditions to go test it. So we will now start seeing more and more of these particular research and development initiatives happening. Hydrogen engines being tested more and more and more. Obviously, it's not to say that I don't want to see the Toyota Land Cruiser Paki now feature a hydrogen version of it featuring now in the Yemen war somewhere. But that's what I'm saying. I just don't know if that same manifestation will occur, but we can slowly but surely now start seeing that the technology will creep in again. Yes, Hyundai itself also said that they will now start looking into hydrogen engines. They were also testing a fuel cell or a combustion engine. Toyota is already with an engine and a fully functional commercial car already. Hyundai is not yet. But it doesn't say that Hyundai will not get there, even though you and I, we did that Namport strategy with the Korean government, the green shipping. And when we looked into that particular discussion, that MOU that Namport signed with the Korean with that Korean ministry, we realized basically that Korea has been at the forefront for the past 10 years of green shipping. That the Koreans have been manufacturing hydrogen engines for ships already.
Hydrogen engines for ships will be that's one interesting transition.
I mean, the shipbuilding is one of the key things specifically to look after your trade. Meaning you can send ships These are private companies. But you can send a fleet, like what Russia does now with its shadow fleet of oil tankers. You can send a fleet of these goods, and whoever wants to buy, obviously gets it at a discounted price, as long as you get the stone cold hard cash on delivery immediately. So, yeah.
Oh, you're done. Oh.
Yeah.
Let's get to Africa now, shall we? Oh boy. Okay. Two factors that two things that you have to look at. Two things that you have to look at. The first one is when Africa is participating. At least that's one thing that I have learned from a lot of reports that we've gone through, especially those ones that are talking about global initiatives. When you look at it from an African perspective, it's very likely to fall within the category of either an emerging market. You are just talking about from a predominantly from a consumer perspective, because you can look at it from a research and development standpoint. There's not much going on in that department with regards to this technology, and this is not just green hydrogen. This is just the world over. And then you bring up now, and then you look at two factors. Factor number one, like you always like to put it, the brains are here. The brains are here.
Yeah.
But the things we are sending these brains to go and do this research and development, basically acquire this knowledge on different subjects in universities that are outside Africa. And most of these institutions are private institutions, so they have terms and conditions with regards to what research information leaves their institutions, even if you are the one that's conducting the research.
Yeah.
So that information then is acquired, gathered by individuals that you are sending and paying a heck of a lot of money in foreign currency to study this. When they come here, they need permission for them to reference their work. Now, when it comes to research and development on the African continent, we still have a long way to go. For the most part, we still have a long way to go. But just from the report itself, Africa, like you saw with the America First Global Health Strategy. No, that's not America. No, the United States, their National Security Strategy. Africa is on the last page, right? Yeah. Well, so is this report. Africa is way in the last page. Now, not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for a lot of reasons. The first one being, I'm a comedian. I find everything funny. Now, on page 212 of the International Energy Agency Green Hydrogen Review for 2026, hydrogen uses in Africa reached 3.1 metric tons in 2024, about 3% of the global total. Hydrogen production accounted for about 6% of the region's gas demand and 2% of regional carbon dioxide emission. Now hydrogen use is concentrated in 6 countries out of 54, with Egypt representing nearly half, followed by Algeria with 20%, Nigeria with 17%, South Africa with 5%, and believe it or not, Libya with 5%, and Equatorial Guinea with 3%.
Equatorial of all. Yeah. And all of them are oil-producing countries.
The irony,
because the executive summary of this report basically also starts with, you know what, Middle East again, block plus block equals unblock. And then you realize, what are you talking about? That the global hydrogen strategy and developments are also impacted by this war. Oh no, it's fertilizer for your food, it's chemicals produced from the various other particular activities. And then I can remember, it's the various labels, Helmut, of for example, like what we call green hydrogen.
Yeah.
It's because it's wind and solar being used.
Yeah, it's generated, it's produced from renewable sources of energy.
So an energy source is used to split the water molecule into oxygen and the hydrogen.
Yeah.
And then I realized, so the Qataris, the UAE, the Emiratis, the Bahrainis,
the
Omanians, they were basically using oil to do hydrogen projects.
Yeah.
They were burning their oil and their gas
Yeah.
to make hydrogen products.
Yeah.
The same particular hydrogen products that we obviously want to achieve in Namibia. Because one of the easiest things to use, whereby we can use the green hydrogen, was to also produce the green ammonia through the Haber-Bosch process.
Process, yeah.
And the Haber-Bosch process is apparently was an accidental
discovery,
of ammonia, and then ammonia was now the global thing for household use.
That was one of those very amazing breakthrough, because when
Haber-Bosch.
Okay, thank you. Now.
It's so easy, because it's two people, it's two scientists.
Yeah, you see, now that breakthrough
Not like your Vaseline
in terms of manufacturing. Can you just leave my Vaseline? No.
Also not like Marie Curie.
No, that one poisoned herself and then her husband.
I wonder what the kids would have looked like.
Turns out uranium. Oh, come on, man! Stop thinking. Have you seen Wrong Turn?
Oh, Chernobyl.
Look, the thing is. That now the ammonia production on large scale for fertilizer purpose by using the Haber-Bosch process was a brilliant breakthrough at the very right time, because that was in the middle of the world searching for alternative, for a lot of fertilizer for commercial use, not just substance use.
Yeah.
Now,
instead of waiting for us to go to the toilet and then go and harvest that,
they had a war over bed poop in South America because of fertilizer. That's still my favorite war. That and the one that started over a bucket.
What kind of a bucket?
Just an ordinary bucket.
A war that started over a bucket.
Oh man, I will walk you through it. Now, the things people fight over. But anyway, coming back to the report, the last part of the last sentence in the of the part that I read, spills into the fertilizer discussion as one of the byproduct of the green hydrogen industry. That ammonia production. This is now in Africa. Ammonia production accounted for nearly 3/4 of hydrogen demand. So. I think this for me points into us really. We should begin to take this serious, because not only it's basically it's looking at replacing fossil fuel in a lot of ways than just modes of transport. Yeah, in the very same way that fossil fuel, produces a lot of products. Crude oil, when it's refined, and this is very basic grade 10 physical science, the fractional distillation of crude oil.
No, Helmut, I was not in that grade 10 class like that you were in. I'll tell you today.
Really?
Yeah. No, really.
No. Now, the thing is, think of it. How do I put this? Okay. Do you know what Kachipembe is?
What, Helmut?
You don't know what Ombike is?
No, I know those.
Okay, thank you very much.
But, but those things you saw in your house.
Yeah. No. Look. Think of it now. Except except when you are making Ombike, that's a terrible example, because what you are doing is you are basically condensing the fume because of the low boiling point of alcohol. Now, in comparison to water.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, the fractional distillation of crude oil. Think of it as a very tall tank, and this tall tank has different, more like outlet pipes popping on basically.
Is it like what the bootleg documentary guys are doing?
So, what's that?
There's this documentary that, okay, not documentaries, but it's like a series that Discovery once had about moonshine distillers
Oh,
in the
yeah,
US.
that.
Now, I
Talk
couldn't
about
understand
moonshine.
why. I couldn't understand why they have multiple outlet pipes.
Yeah,
But it's literally as the distillation process is taking place
yeah.
at multiple levels.
Look, it's called crude oil for a reason, because it's a combination of a lot of different chemicals.
Yeah.
I mean, your diesel comes from there, your petrol comes from there, your paraffin comes from there, kerosene, and also is basically paraffin, kerosene, same WhatsApp group to some degree. But the thing is, when crude oil is extracted from the ground, it's literally cooked. The thing is, as it heats up, different chemicals that makes up this whole single GUI evaporates at different temperatures, and it's collected in different containers.
Oh, so what people have to think about is just add heat, but look at multiple collection chambers.
For
multiple products, which is basically what the Power X is trying to achieve.
That's why I'm saying, if you look at green hydrogen as an alternative source of fuel to crude oil, it is in a lot of ways very similar in application. Thank you. In processing and application.
Yeah, but
because
just where you get the resource from.
Yeah.
And the byproducts of that resource.
Thank God you don't have to drill the earth. No.
Thank God.
Yeah. Now,
or burn another fuel to achieve another fuel. I still don't understand those guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can see it from block equals unblock. It's the same thing. Now, the thing is, crude oil, when it's being distilled, different chemicals are going to come out at different temperatures, and they are collected differently.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens the same thing happens with gases. Our atmosphere is about 70% hydrogen. Is it hydrogen? No, nitrogen. It's about 70% nitrogen.
But isn't it a nitrogen oxygen mix helmet?
Yeah, it's nitrogen. You have it's about 70% nitrogen, about 21% oxygen.
And then the rest.
Then you have
carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide and other gases.
Yeah. And then argon is even there in between.
Those ones are the most stubborn, but.
And then you realize argon is also deadly by itself, but yeah.
Oh, chemicals are very nice to mix, and also very dangerous. Now, when you look at the production and the application of green hydrogen, it's basically replacing not just in forms of modes of transport fossil fuels, but it's also replacing fossil fuels in fertilizer production. Hence, the ammonia that the ammonia that was used, more like that created a large portion of the green hydrogen products demand just in Africa. So this is a type of technology that is still emerging, which means we can participate.
Yeah.
It's still emerging. It's not as refined yet, at least in comparison to crude oil. But you do that first.
Yeah, we'll quickly take a short break, dear listeners, and we come back right after it. Velvici University for the 2027 applications that are now open for the Faculty of Health Sciences. For the following programs: Certificate for Enrolled Nurse, Midwife or Accoucheur, Level 6. For the Certificate in Pharmacy, Level 5. For the Diploma in Environmental Health Sciences, Level 6. For the Bachelor of Social Work Honours. For the Bachelor of Nursing and Midwifery Science Honours. Postgraduate Diploma in Community Health Nursing, Level 8. Postgraduate Diploma in Occupational Health and Safety, Level 8. Postgraduate Diploma in Mental Health Nursing, Level 8. Master of Public Health and the Master of Occupational Health and Safety. For more information, please call 081-403-6406. Velvici University, where everyone is an achiever.
Welcome back. Now we can continue. So there are a lot of things that we could be participating in, but when you look at it as it unfolds, we are more likely going to end up in the very same situation in terms of participating into the manufacturing process. We're going to end up in the same situation we are with crude oil, where we congratulate one Nigerian for building a refinery because it's not one that we know to happen a lot on the continent. Except we do have a lot of refineries on this continent.
And then just for that same Nigerian's refinery, basically to say, well, your fuel is not going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
We buy it at the same price as anybody else.
Even though I just drove it across the street. Now, that's just a pure greed and politics at play.
Which basically means it's the ministers of energy at OPEC.
Yeah.
Basically.
They basically corner the market, and they'll tell you, okay, congratulations on your refinery, but you still have to stick to our
For me
price.
to make me my money, you need to sign on to this line and stick at this oil price.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have this market that we have been supplying, and we don't want you coming to disturb it. I thought the idea was making things affordable. It turns out, no. We're not making things affordable. We're just making money.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
How affordable or unaffordable things become.
Yeah. Now, the status of hydrogen and government strategies today, that's just on Africa. Just decided to zone in on Africa. And your Namibia and right next to Morocco and Algeria are on page 218. Now, let's look at our wind that we've been selling to China now, shall we?
I would leave the auntie alone. I told you she's positive, There's positive outlooks. Besides the wind and the sun.
Besides the wind and the sun.
Besides the wind and the sun.
Yeah. Namibia's strategy depicts a long vision centered around development of 3 renewable hydrogen valleys across the country. Despite not having any hydrogen demand today, the ambition of the strategy is to produce 1 to 2 metric tons of renewable hydrogen in 2030, ramping up to 10 to 15 metric tons in 2050, driven by ammonia and synthetic fuel and ion exports. Hence our, when I read that line, I was like, oh, hence our high ion, investment so far.
Yeah.
Some of us are investing by faith. Yeah, those that are investing by Americans, Europeans, they will invest with money. Africans will just our thoughts and prayers. You got this.
We show up for the buffet.
Yeah, with the Oxford level English and a very nice suit.
Yes, guys, that's what we do.
Look, whatever we're smoking, I really recommend we pump some brakes on it. But anyway, to achieve this now. Okay. Now, this would require an electrolyzer capacity of 10 gigawatts by 2030, increasing to 128 gigawatts by 2028. What's the first thing that comes in your mind when you hear the word electrolyzer? As for me, I hear Siemens.
Well, the thing is, this report also speaks about a worrying thing that I saw last year. That the Chinese were basically also ramping up to try and make electrolyzers as more affordable as possible. Because the Europeans were also developing their own electrolyzers, which is the same discussion. Remember when we did the solar panel discussion back in 2024?
Yeah. Oh, the mass import.
Yeah. How Africa is rather pivoting to China for the cheaper equipment and infrastructure.
Yeah.
But then you also see, okay, but it's because the Europeans and their accounting is just weird and everything is just in euros. But the Chinese can literally, bring your economies of scale, which usually is your currency and your price tag, down to a level which can accommodate you. Now, a scenario like that basically speaks to we've got to try and understand. For example, where would the electrolyzer come from, let's say, for an EU-funded green hydrogen project?
I would say Germany.
You would assume that until you go and hear, oh no, those guys went also there to the international market to look for international equipment on an industrial scale, and then they bought from China.
Yeah.
Or like one of the photos when President Nandin Ndaitwa last year pushed the button for the Oshivela green iron or high iron project to switch on the one machine there. And
must be nice being
the lead engineer is from China.
Well, didn't I tell you that? I did. I'll just retell you anyway.
The lead engineer is from China anyway. So the skill sets would also probably come from the same economy, primarily where President Nandin Ndaitwa currently is.
Zimbabwe refined its first or processed its first lithium.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how it is on paper until you look up at the company that did the refining, the Chinese company. And so they're going like, sure, we're very good at taking. But look, it's
like Coca-Cola with its bottling and canning facility in Namibia, and then we say, no, Coke is made in Namibia. And then
no, it's not.
And then you say, no, it technically is.
You see, that's the thing.
Technically, it is. It's bottled here, and it's the thing is made here.
Yeah.
But when you look at where the product comes from, it doesn't come from Namibia. Yes, the truck drove from Namibia to go deliver, let's say, for example, wherever. But where does the product originate from? The product comes from the US. It's a 200-year-old product. It's not a Namibian product. Yes, it's through the benevolence of the economic system, yes, that everybody can now drink and consume the same product. But still, when you look at it, okay, there might be a slight difference between Coke made in Namibia and Coke made in South Africa. Slight difference.
In terms of ingredients used, the amount of sugar? Or?
It's the taste function. But here's the thing, Helmut. You can drive from the side of the country. Let's say you just walk across the bridge in Zambezi into Zambia.
Yeah.
The Coke there will taste different.
I never really thought of that.
It's also how I discovered that the black label in Zambia tastes different from the black label in Zimbabwe. It's the only beer I could tolerate. I couldn't take the Zambian options anymore. I just couldn't. They were just horrible. I'm sorry if you're Zambian, but you guys should just stick to your daytime job and not make beer.
Come on, man. It was just your taste buds.
Because really, they would sell the same brand here in Zambia
Yeah.
and the same brand in Zimbabwe, but then you find out the thing tastes completely different, in the two countries that border onto each other. But from the scenario of how we obviously look at, what's that thing's name? Supply channels and channel management and component manufacturing or something in that sense. Globalization, Helmut, still takes place in a dimension where we have now, in the past 3 years, thought that globalization technically would fall apart.
Yeah.
For example, the bloc plus bloc equals unbloc basically resulted in how the Iranian football team got treated at the World Cup.
Oh, that was horrible.
Ne? It also led primarily to how us Africans can fly to the US, for example. I mean, no Namibian has 300,000 Namibian dollars just lying around for the US dollar equivalent of the visa, that short-term holiday visa situation that got announced last year. No one has got that money for the US. But when you look at what immediately happens in terms of just the repurposing of demand. So I'm talking like, for example, like with tourism. The tourists who thought they could go to the US continuously and as often as possible pre-Trump now realize, okay, let me divert my ticket money,
changing destination,
and my hotel money somewhere else. Now we're hearing about tourists driving around on people's farms, like in Namibia. They just decided to go for a drive about, not a walkabout. Like the one guy that with the NTB thing where us journalists were taken to that, cultural tourism thing, north and south. A group went north. I went was the group that went north, and a group that went south. And before we drove over, I spoke to the one tour guide for the southern group. He said the previous week he almost got into serious trouble in the south of Namibia. Mm-hmm. He's a guy also from the south of Namibia, mm-hmm. from the Keetmanshoop, between Keetmanshoop and Mariental area. And he said that the Italian tourists he had the previous week, the Italian tourists just wanted him to continuously drive onto people's private property. And he said it seemed like the Europeans don't understand the idea of private property. In a Namibian context, private property usually comes with gunpowder and the mechanism that fires the gunpowder and the projectile out of it the other end.
Yeah.
Meaning it's usually Wild West justice templates that take place. And the tourists just wanted him to drive into people's farms and properties and stuff.
Well, just tell them that's not how things work here.
No, the guy kept saying that.
Yeah.
The tourist basically was, what he was partially narrating was that it seemed like the tourists said, you are giving me an all-access tour of your country.
All access?
Yeah, since I hired you, you take me wherever I want to go. So scenarios like that pop up because of the antics since last year into this year that keep cascading, which also now are the antics of 28 February that we now see happening with like the global hydrogen position. What is interesting to see, Helmut, is that they say a lot more projects have reached final investment decision realm, which means things that were in the pipeline have now moved from pipeline status to now technically being now for sure projects to be constructed.
Yeah.
And that any new projects coming online or coming into a pipeline, for example, are lesser. So this means that when you and I spoke about like engines and fuel cells and stuff like that, it means we are now getting into the next phase of things. Now, I've got to stress here, once again, dear listeners, Namibia's green hydrogen scenario is obviously championed by the EU. Japan is definitely behind a hydrogen-based energy economy somewhere. We can now see because it's also mentioned in this report. Basically, this report says this stems from a ministerial level policy-making aspect. And I was like, which ministries? And it's basically Japan front and center, which technically means since Japan is not a country that produces oil, they want to go where their technology basically will be for their benefit. South Korea is basically also pivoting in this direction. China will pivot in this direction. Russia will pivot in this direction. Just to let you know, they will pivot, Helmut.
They have already, if you look at it from a research and development standpoint.
No, because I saw an actual hydrogen car like this in 2024. The car is silent.
Yeah,
but that was a fuel cell. But that was a fuel cell car. It wasn't the one about the engine with the engine.
The thing is, when it comes to technology, when a new form of technology shows up in the scientific community, investors line up for the next potential dominating type of technology that will enable them to make money. That's pretty much the exact same thing that happened with the shift from the steam engine to the internal combustion engine, aka one that uses gas. And now that this transition is happening, the people that are looking beyond, beyond what I'm going to drink this weekend. So these are the people that are taking a lot of their money and pouring it into research and development, of alternative fuel sources from fossil fuels. Yeah. Now, as a result, obviously, as in everything else, the people that have deep pockets will scatter their investment more like the better odds you stand of. Having one or two scores in terms of your returns.
Yeah.
Again, when we talk about any of these from an African standpoint, it's difficult to talk about it from a manufacturing perspective. It's difficult to talk about it. It's not impossible. It's difficult because you only have a very minor participation, and even those, and I'm using the word difficult because even the minor participations, like the, like the use that I just pointed out, the use in terms of green hydrogen energy and fertilizer. That was used in 2024, 2025 on the African continent. The manufacturing and the supply and much of the trade of all these products taking place on the African continent is either directly or indirectly funded by either North Americans, Europeans, the Chinese, or the Japanese.
Yeah.
So when you look at the money, then when you just look at the money, you will understand just how little we are doing in terms of research and development. And not just research and development, but also manufacturing. So that's why the only more like wider scope of looking at manufacturing, just manufacturing, it's not on the African continent. When you talk about emerging markets, that's when we come up a lot as consumers, not participants, which is not a good picture. So when you look at it from manufacturing on the African continent, little though it may be, I'm not thrilled much about that. Not because I'm not proud of my continent or my country. It's who is funding, because I know whoever is funding is the one that's going to run the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, now a lot of countries are investing in this technology right now, and we are just here, while debating some other things. When the technology is perfected, we become consumers once again, and a lot of the investors that poured a lot of their money into strengthening these industries on our continent, in our respective countries, will start dictating either through lobbying groups or directly by bribing politicians to change laws in their favor. Then we start shouting Pan-Africanism. No, man, that's not how it's supposed to work. If you want to run your economy, pay for it.
The paying part is
difficult. Yeah, look, you can't run around asking people for money, and when they start influencing your policies, you start claiming, it's a capture. They're taking over over my country. You took their money.
That's exactly the thing, Ahmed, because the paying part is the difficult part. The paying part is literally the difficult part.
Yeah, it would be easy if we weren't stealing.
Okay, let me rephrase before your reaction.
Okay.
You can still decide if you want to react same with the same statement.
Okay.
For example,
yeah,
the president is currently right now inviting the Chinese private sector to come and invest more in Namibia. But what's in it for them? That's the first particular point.
The key word you used there is investment. So we know it's an investment that we are inviting, not a donation. So we have got, there's something that's in it for them. Because we have to be clear on that.
Yeah.
If we are aware of that part, please continue.
But what was Minister Musavi's words that you highlighted also in the same scenario? Wind and sun.
Yeah.
Now, just, 2 weeks back when we highlighted the ratio of 29,000 to 1,000, 29,000 jobs in the green hydrogen sector to the 1,000 that the VTCs can currently produce, which obviously means it's a 29 to 1 ratio basically, which highlights that companies who need Namibians with the skill sets to participate have to go pay more money to import someone else from somewhere, motivated to home affairs over here and immigration, why they are bringing in a foreigner to do the job temporarily because they have work to do. The work cannot stand still. They need to make money because there's just a few Namibians who can do the work, because you can't pay one Namibian 5 salaries working at 5 different companies at the same exact time.
That is also for the sake of their sanity.
That's also for the sake of of public health and personal health.
Yeah.
Now, that particular dimension is also something primarily that the Namibian government has to realize they've got to step up things with. That they literally have to accelerate skills developments from the vocational and training sector of Namibia. Not just from the universities. But
I now throw the ball back in our hands as Namibians.
Yeah.
Helmut, we wanted industrialization.
We still do.
We still do.
Yeah.
But we wanted it for 30 years before green hydrogen showed up. We wanted it for 30 years.
That's because we've been praying for it instead of putting money in it.
Exactly. And this unicorn just kept running past us. We knew this unicorn exists.
Yeah.
We knew it. We don't have the potential to go and colonize someone else.
And I don't want us to.
We don't have that potential. But the downside was also we didn't step up to the plate. One of the particular things is, Helmut, industrialization will come through now if you decentralize development. Meaning, if instead of just having a ministry that decides for Keetmanshoop what Keetmanshoop must spend money on to empower businesses. Because Keetmanshoop every year has to submit its budget to Ministry of Urban and Rural Development. But Keetmans is also probably one of those local authorities, like many other local authorities outside of Windhoek, that don't make enough money for it to basically ramp up its development agenda.
Yeah.
We've also known, because City of Windhoek keeps mentioning it, they subsidize basically the development of all the other local authorities in the country. So the discussion from that is also something of looking at, okay, the regional authorities, the regions, have their own regional councils. Each regional council has extension divisions from each ministry. So if MASAC has here at Government Office Park, their office, there would be an extension office in Hardap who has to coordinate with headquarters here. But they basically form part of the governor's responsibility. Helmut, I realized back in last year, just before that local and regional authority elections that if politics pivots to being politics for good for us all, we won't need to talk about money. All we would need to do is talk about innovation and the ability to achieve goals. But now I have to ask you, Helmut, okay, yes, a country like Japan had to colonize somebody. Sure, that's the worst template to try and emulate. It's the worst template to emulate. But then you also sit with a discussion that the internet is basically the resource that you just need to plug in, switch on a light, switch on the screen, and voila, there we go. You can watch a tutorial. What is so wrong?
Nothing is wrong.
Nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
And then here's the downside, which technically might motivate and back up your statement of as long as we don't steal something. We can still borrow money. Because,
we can.
Because money borrowed by the public sector, by the government, basically factors in as a stimulation of the local economy, which Minister Sankwasa said literally himself as well. And this has nothing to do with town planning, with land, with reaching rural. No, it's got nothing to do with those things, guys. We're literally staying on a scenario of saying, listen, to bring into reality that one manifesto that went said factory in every constituency situation, which is a bit far-fetched, but it's a bit far-fetched, but if those industrial activities were coordinated around the administrative capitals of each region in Namibia, you would have seen real industrial activity then just proliferate. But since we do have exact templates of an empty garment factory in Nkuru, and we know that 90% of Nkuru's population works for the government, they definitely won't have a side hustle as a seamstress in that garment factory, Helmut. And we have an exact template of a volunteer workforce at a tannery who owns the input nogal. I've never heard of a workforce that owns literally the raw material going into the factory. I've never heard of this, Helmut.
That's because you have never heard of a lot of volunteers.
Working for a company.
Look, a man gotta eat.
Somehow.
If he is working without you paying him and he keeps showing up, you have to figure out, you have to ask yourself one question. How is he showing up? Because
he's healthy.
He's and happy.
Yeah, and happy.
Yeah, and he happened to have the, wait, when did that report come out?
That one, we did that one last year at the start of the year. But it came out in the previous year of 2024.
Now, according to that report...
Because they had to go... They gave recommendations 2023.
Yeah.
And they came back at the end of 2024.
Yeah.
And then the report was released in 2025 because the new administration had to take, the new parliament and the new people had to be sworn in.
Yeah.
And these guys had to hand over all work that they did in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
And that report was one of those tranche of reports.
You're like, you know what, this is what we were working on.
This is what we finished up. Here you go, thank
Carry
you,
on. Yeah.
goodbye. And then we saw the report only last year.
Now, when they went there in 2023, they found a cowhide that was fresh.
Yeah.
And when they went back in 2024, towards the end of the year, they found the cowhide still fresh.
Yeah.
That means it's either someone is using those machines as a way of paying themselves, or we have immortal cowhide.
Yeah.
One of these two.
Yes.
Which I'm not going with the first, I'm not going with the second one because that one doesn't make sense. I'm going with I'm going with the first one, not because I'm accusing them of anything. I'm just saying that's exactly what I would do if I was heavy, if I had to show up every day. And, this is a manufacturing facility and has all this equipment that you can use to, it's like me showing up at the Eagle FM every day and here are all these microphones and this very nice sound system. Sooner or later, I'll just turn on the mic and start making noise. Yeah, and
it's not like we are making noise,
look,
guys.
If people are listening and they keep throwing me compliments, of course I'm going to continue.
No, Helmut. No, Helmut.
Look.
No, Helmut. No. No.
And the compliments are awesome.
Yeah.
Look. Yes, energy transition. We showed up in 2015 in Paris for the Paris climate agreements, and then we signed up for this and all that. But there's one thing that you guys pointed out in the previous discussion, and that is the part of when you extend the boundaries of an urban area. You are changing, a lot of things with regards to property ownership. In the regions that fall within the borders of your extensions.
Yeah.
Now, what that means to me is a lot of consultations are needed when it comes to and we saw this unfold in Korenkuru in terms of ownership and the registrations of deeds and all these things. Oh, when I tell you we need a lot of consultations, believe me, we need a whole lot when it comes to property ownership, in a sense of in a way of the Western, more like a Western way that we have adopted of owning properties, because Western property ownership legislations or laws are they are a lot. I'll give you an example. From where I come from, traditionally, if you have look, and everyone that has been to Tura, can see this, and actually Tura is an excellent example of why we need a lot of consultations with regards to ownership of properties, especially land, the Western way. If you go to Tura, you just see that some of the footpaths are leading through someone's.
Look at the back.
Namra. Now, I know.
If you see those ties, ne?
I know that uniform. Now, look, the thing is, take for example, in the Western way of property ownership, which is basically, we use Roman Dutch law. That's as Western as it can get. You have things like servitude, for example, that gives you the right of way that gives you the right that you can register with the that you can although it's what's called a limited real right, it's just now right in terms of ownership basically means you have your name of on the deeds documents of that property. Now limited real right is like you renting. That's basically that will be your limited real right. You have access to the building. You have a written agreement drawn out, but it's the property is not on your name. So if you want to use someone's in the Western way of ownership, if you want to use someone's piece of land as a walkway for you to get to the river or to get to the main road, you need a contract. But we don't do that here. You just walk through. If there's a path, just walk. And now, I don't think I can explain servitude in my language, because there are a lot of concepts that just doesn't exist in my culture. Now, when you talk about adopting something like that, and our development in terms of expanding, expanding like the municipal type of type of environments. You're talking about legislations that are influenced by central government, and you're talking about bylaws that are obviously made by the public officials of these respective municipalities. And all these things are very Western, and we have adopted it, and now we already saw, and I like how Kurankuru was an excellent example, because people were like, okay, you know what, a few days ago I was fetching water for free. The river is just there, I can get it. Thank you for bringing me a tap, but I didn't ask for it. Now, how do you go about generating revenue for that environment, for that specific service provision, if someone is telling you something like that? You can't force them, because that will be you violating their right.
Yes. Well, it's also a discussion, Ahmed, of do you go and dictate a situation, and then people ask you, but okay, let me help you even with your example.
Yeah.
So yesterday, a day in Rehoboth, helping my sister move into her place. I stand there seeing because Rehoboth is one of those towns that get, their water and electricity gets disconnected regularly by the utility companies of Namibia, because the local authority doesn't pay. And then
no surprise
I see this double cab Toyota bakkie driving past me, and I stand there as a Vintukermos now. I observe this. This double cab drives past me with like that massive container for water that you can fit onto the back of a bakkie.
Yeah,
it's that square one, not this one.
Okay,
not the one that captures
square, like
rain.
whitish, transparent-ish ones.
Yeah, but then it has like a mesh wire net.
Around it. Yeah,
around it, ne? And then it's got it's like a water inlet. It's inlet.
It's at the top.
It's at the top, and then such a thing drives past me, full of water. And then I tell my brother, so how do you have money to afford $500,000 Namibian worth bakkie, but you don't have water at your house?
Because the bills, the money that is supposed to pay for the water is going to paying for the car.
Is going to be paying for the car.
Yes.
Now it's dilemmas like that, Hamud,
yeah,
that you sometimes sit there wondering to yourself, like in a Namibian context, or like in an African context, how do we have money to do this, but you couldn't channel that money to achieve this priority?
Again, I think that's where the keyword is. Yeah. Priority. For you, the priority is water. For him, it's the car. The water comes in secondary.
And then, it's also a scenario of like the discussion on the industrialization that I pointed out to a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So, for 30 years, like I said, Namibia was preaching we must industrialize.
Point of correction, Africa was preaching.
No, but I'm talking about Namibia.
Okay.
Because we've been preaching to ourselves we must industrialize. We're still preaching it.
Yeah.
And then when we're on the cusp of achieving in some form of industrialization, which can potentially absorb a lot of people working for it, we realize there's that ratio of the VTCs. that we
29 to 1.
We will have 29 jobs to 1 Namibian in.
When is that happening though? It must come quickly.
I suspect, Hamid, because when I spoke to one of the people from Hyphen earlier this year, that event that the MOU signing that they had with JZ Namibia, they're still ongoing with the skills mapping. Meaning you can even go and put your CV up there and say what your skills are. Because they want to measure the extent of local content participation through not just through employment, but also through what service can you provide potentially.
Yeah.
Now, a skills mapping exercise, Helmut, it's a sly way of basically assessing what is out there. I say sly way, what is assessing out there, but it was done transparently. I mean, I reported on the thing. I wrote an article about the thing.
Yeah.
It's a slight sly way, but it's actually a way of saying, listen, we will definitely have these jobs, but we definitely want to know that there's a Namibian out there that can do the job. It's a definite. This is not a order with me. This is not a fly-by-night scam. This is not even a pig butchery. There's not even a pig butchering scam. Né? This is literally, the job will be there. The job will pay a lot. But are you there?
What it takes to participate in the industry.
Yeah. Are you there? The oil will do the same thing.
Yeah.
You will hear the same oil guys will potentially go and buy that data set from that company Hyphen and ask them, listen, we want to see how many of these people are in Namibia. Here's some money. Thank you. We'd like your data. And then they will recycle that data.
You know what? I heard that the oil guys, I mean, it's 300 kilometers offshore and, it requires diving. I know someone that likes diving.
Yeah.
Really hope he's not listening. Of all things, diving. Don't understand that guy.
But that's must now for welding underwater and fixing things underwater, which is the Event Horizon situation stuff.
Hey, no, don't scare our boss.
Which boss? Oh. Why you... Okay.
Look, he already likes diving. All he has to do is learn how to weld and, Windhoek Vocational Training Center is a problem solved. Then he can participate directly in the industry. I think he's listening.
Yes, he is, Ahmed. You know it.
Now, let's. We are 17 minutes into the hour of 7. And yes, it's still home run. You are not lost. It's, it's home run extended. From 2 hours to 3 hours, and every Monday and Friday we have a little bit of basically a dent of other shows in our home run shows, and those are not interruptions. Those are actually good for paying the bills. So we actually we would be running. That's basically Tuesday to Thursday. We are going to be running from 4 o'clock to 7, and. Until further notice, Monday and Fridays are the only ones that will have. For Monday we'll have 2 hours. That's from 5. From 5 to 7. And for Tuesday, for Friday it's only 30 minutes. That is taken out by the Childline Lifeline program. So, page 226 of that report. Africa. African countries generated almost 925 terawatt hour of electricity in 2024, almost as much as Japan. And
I don't know which one is more insulting or which one is more embarrassing.
That's what. That sentence is very. It was sounding very awesome until it went to almost as much as Japan. But we have a commercial break coming up. We'll continue on the other side. Home Run with Helmut and Dwight on Eagle FM.
Do you need toiletries and household cleaners? You won't get it cheaper than at USave up to the 7th of June. Get 250mm jars of Vaseline for only 25 Namibian dollars. Smell fresh with Playboy roll-on deodorant for just 18.99 Namibian dollars. Get 2 kilograms of Surf's hand washing powder for just 49.99 Namibian dollars. Get 750ml Sunlight dishwashing liquid for 28.99 Namibian dollars. And get 2 boxes of Cares Maxi sanitary pads for only 12.99 Namibian dollars. USave, where else?
You are now listening to The Home Run with Helmut and Dwight, weekdays from 4:30 to 6, only on Eagle FM. Download the app or tune in to a frequency near you.
My friend, why do you seem so worried?
Ace, I'm planning an event for next weekend, and I don't know how to best get people to hear about it.
Simon, don't worry about those small things. Contact Eagle FM today. Eagle FM has a dedicated team that can travel anywhere countrywide to broadcast live at any event, such as a promotion, organizational launch, anniversary, wedding, funeral, political or traditional and church events, and basically any event that you wish to broadcast on a national level. Call them now and talk to Monica at 081-270-3727 or the office number 083-2888-400. Eagle FM, the eye.
Welcome back from that break. So we continue. So where was I? How we are being compared in terms of energy generation with Japan. Have you seen Japan by landmass? Now, let me repeat that again. African countries generated almost 925 terawatt of electricity in 2024, almost as much as Japan, a country with 8% of Africa's population. Right? It's things like this that makes me go with, oh my God.
And remember, that country has...
Our energy generation as a continent
is the scale of one.
Is the scale? It's almost it's not at the scale yet. It's almost at the scale that Japan.
Yeah, it's not. We're not even at China.
We will be there in 200 years. Now the thing is,
we're not even on India's level yet.
Nowhere near. Almost. So, you know what that means? Investment in the industry.
Yeah, but where does it come from, Helmut?
Yeah.
We can't just be running, well, basically every time to go and say, please come and invest more in us. And then we get a minister that comes and says, yeah, so 50% of mines and the company that you run. Remember the Robin Sherborne analysis start of the year, which also highlighted that it seems like no one knew where Neef and Tipek went. They just silently disappeared because they were claiming 50% ownerships of other people's businesses, but you didn't show up with the money. And if you had the money, why didn't you start the business yourself? Yeah, because we go and tell the international investor, yeah, pay 300 million for Namibian dollars for a seismic survey. Now, we then go and make that 300 million a benchmark for everyone, meaning Namibian or foreign. And definitely, you, the Namibian, the pockets are not so deep for you.
Yeah. I mean, we can see the exact same thing in the tourism industry.
Yeah.
The prices are just set up for foreign consumers.
Oh, Helmut, I want you to read the bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4. The one that says, today 80% of Africa's iron making capacity.
On what page are you?
That same page, 212, at the start of the chapter.
Oh, no.
Is direct reduced iron, which provides a strong basis for blending hydrogen with natural gas in existing and new plants. But
bullet number 3.
No, 4.
4. Today, over 80% of Africa's iron making capacity is based on direct reduced iron, which produces a strong basis for blending hydrogen with natural gas in existing and new plants. Africa is a net exporter. That's what I was afraid of, because that's why I always try my level best to have discussions like this from a manufacturing standpoint and an investment standpoint, because that's where all the jobs that we want are based on. That's where all the jobs and all the economic development that we want in terms of energy security, that's where they're coming from. Not from a consumer, just a pure consumer standpoint. But that's where we are actually, that's where we have a lot of potentials. Because we are not investing much in manufacturing and investment, we are leaving a lot of doors open for just being consumers, just being an available market for whoever has the best breakthrough in terms of making the technology efficiency, whether they are east, west, or central.
Yeah. Now, go back to point 2, Helmut, where it says, today, only 6, I think that's probably kilotons of low emissions hydrogen is produced in Africa, exclusively from renewables, which factors in Namibia. The hydrogen project pipeline in 2030 has 31 projects, which could allow increasing production to 1.2 million tons, but only one has reached final investment decision. Just one out of 54 markets. The next sentence after that sentence, which ends as just one, many projects are at gigawatt scale and will take time to bring to fruition. Chinese companies have been active in financing and developing projects in Africa, as well as supplying equipment to these projects. There's no problem with providing equipment and selling it to Africa.
Oh, I got the next point.
Yeah.
Africa's fertilizer use is about one-sixth of the global average, and the continent has a large food trade deficit. Domestic production of ammonia could improve access to hydrogen fertilizer surrounding high agricultural productivity and food production, while reducing exposure to price volatility. That point reminded me of us only finding out in 2022. Was that 2022? Yeah, that the bread we've been eating is made out of wheat coming out of Ukraine
and Russia.
Yep.
Because Russia was sanctioning Ukrainian wheat, and Russian wheat was being sanctioned by the rest of the world. No, by NATO.
And then we sent Macky Sall to go and say, as a belief man here, please, man.
Be humane towards us.
Yeah.
We don't care what you're doing between each other. Well, it actually worked.
Yeah. Oh no, we are very good at begging. Oh, you're surprised it worked.
Another dimension, Helmut, primarily, is this whole chapter. So, dear listeners, just so that you know, this whole chapter that we were now just citing says, if Africa could. Coulda, woulda, maybe, in future, has potential.
Oh, the potential. Oh, dear Lord.
This is the whole language of this one chapter. They literally put us last. And if you look at because there's even a thing of status and prospects for hydrogen in Africa, and the dimensions also speak towards, it's as if, Helmut, we live in this vacuum outside of the rest of the world, where the rest of the world seems to be developing faster, minus the bombs and the explosions and the war. But it seems like we don't have the same ideas for ourselves. We don't see ourselves in the same big picture.
Ideas need money to bring them to fruition.
Yeah, but where do you get the money? You need more than these national youth funds.
Mm-hmm.
Not just one national youth fund.
You
then need a business stimulating fund for nothing that's youth oriented.
You know what I'm going to recommend?
What?
What the Urban and Rural Development recommended to newly elected regional and local councillors in Rundu at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
There are a lot of funding access mechanism even for public officials on a constituency and regional level.
Yes.
All you just have to do is follow the channels. The recommendation came from the minister himself. Just go through us. We'll help you through it. We will just follow the whole procedure, which also requires which also involves the Ministry of Finance, and we're good to go. My fear is just before that advice was, that recommendation was thrown out there. I know it's in the legislations. I know a lot of public officials knew that already. If they did not, then that picture is even more scarier. That's why I don't want to think about that alternative. So now, when you look at it that way, my biggest fear is we're going to have fish rot in every constituency, or Mozambique, or now Senegal, and Senegal. Jesus, 7 billion. Holy cow! I thought Mozambique was bad.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, that means if we are going to have, now we want to urbanize, we want to decentralize as a country in terms of economic activities, trade, political power, for the good of our country's economy and democracy. So 2 birds with 1 stone. So now, when you look at it, the first thing that you begin to see is that as a local, as a constituency or regional councillor, or public official with that power that the Minister of Urban and Rural Development was talking about, of following alternative methods of funding for your constituency's development. They are there. You can execute them. You can do that as long as you're just following the proper channels. Because at the end of the day, receipts have to be compiled, and all those receipts and all the everything,
and
reporting and everything have to be, the Minister of Finance, which is why the involvement of the Minister of Finance is a very important thing. Now, here's the thing. So that is obviously an excellent way.
Yeah,
that's an excellent way of decentralizing economic activities in the country. But that brings up the capital projects discussion, where public officials were asked about the projects taking place in their constituencies, and some of them, I kid you not, and that's according to the Natural Resources Standing Committee report. What project?
Okay, for the local councils, which are politicians. The thing is, Ahmad, what I've observed from their actions is that they react to something.
Reactionary.
They are reactionary. They don't sit with an idea of saying, let me take my town forward, or let me take my neighborhood forward, or let me work with the other opposition MPs, and let's try and move forward.
I think that's part of the problem, and it's a good thing you point that out. It's because it's one thing that was pointed out by those. They said there are these, anti-corruption. You know how anti-corruptions meet like on a SADC level to talk about how to combat corruption, and in SADC. There are also a group of public officials that met, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Some from Uganda, Tanzania. They met in South Africa to talk about a financing mechanism and how to make basically all the finances move in the public sphere more fluid and responsibly. And a lot of there are 2 representatives that I remember correctly. That one came from Tanzania, and then the other one was from Uganda. One thing they pointed out was there's a lot of politics going on in public office. People don't want to work with each other, not because the projects are bad or the environment itself is bad per se. It's just because they're from different political parties, and that is very dumb, because you are in public office, not your political party office.
Yeah.
So a lot of people then are putting their political party ideologies and ways of doing things in the pilot seat, and everything public is in the passenger seat when it's supposed to be the other way around. So I think until we actually get through, first of all, if we want to control our economy, we have got to start funding our initiatives. And look, man, anyone that's investing in your country is going to need their money back.
Yes.
You don't have to like it. That's how things work. It's an investment, not a donation.
No, but Ahmad, that's not for you and me to say here to each other.
Oh no!
It's.
Don't worry, there's a microphone here.
It's for whichever ministry to go and tell the people in the regions.
Yeah.
And the councillors.
Thank you.
You are liable for every cent you spend.
Yeah.
For every approval of every project that you wish to champion. Because the question, obviously, from, let's for example say the IPPR's procurement tracker discussion, you remember that there's usually an assessment of how many public entities have released their procurement plans and procurement strategies, and then they've got to give and they have to report at the end of a procurement of a financial year the rate or execution rate of said procurement activities. Meaning how much money was dispensed and which projects these are. Now, that is the best barometer for you and me, for Dwight and Helmut, the WhatsApp qualified experts.
I'm not in a documentary.
Leave the documentary thing.
Okay.
I just borrowed his label for that particular. Now you're busy throwing stones for no reason. So once again, let me start again.
Yeah.
It's not for. Okay, I won't call us also WhatsApp qualified because we're not WhatsApp qualified. Okay, so let's say for the lay person, to primarily highlight grievances that they don't fully understand.
Yeah.
But we have to ask a question primarily of this discussion of now trying to be transparent, of open contracting, of EITI-ness, and trying to achieve the most desired level of a society.
Yeah.
If you ask yourself, Helmut, wouldn't it have been greater if, for example, the Regional Council of Hardap shows up with an industrial policy? The Regional Council because Comas can't do anything. I'm sorry, Comas. You guys are just placeholders. You technically can't do anything. City of Windhoek does everything for you.
And we also have to wrap it up.
Yeah. So, on that particular note, dear listeners, I'll just cut it short right there. The aspect about money would have been a lot more detailed if everybody had the opportunity, if like local governments had the opportunity to account for money and basically be in control of things. However, the reality is the other side.
Yeah. Until tomorrow.
Same time, same place, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening in our company, and we'll see each other again.
Yeah, boom.
No matter where you are, if you have a mobile device, you can tune into Namibia's #1 talk radio station by downloading the Eagle FM app on the Google Play Store or on the Apple App Store. Download the Eagle FM app to tune into live Eagle FM programming or to listen to podcasts of previous broadcasts. Eagle FM, Namibia's #1 talk radio station.
Omutiha wetekirota buna imatina omjo chikao shafasa na nana longe shifa ya shike moshiwana iyo moyawo otaingo boti samweni ana shifa ya Namibia ombutombwa na wa onjika teifa nina omayakuro nirandi tomwa ye yonge shifa yoyo kupitiramo Eagle FM Media House ngoi 20 neha ukakombanga nena kara omukwashipareki wimepo iyo mo programa detu Moambo, donde la soma, Kona rahita timu. Ndatu heri hamano tano. Omeaji. Eagle FM. Go high.
Na tupandule wakotove tupembako mbako ngashinga lilimo makia na Rwanda kudilila mundangwa ya shini meshimvura o amendirike mbako ushirongo shamengera ngudu ya furo mkunda wa karimbo rudira moni ya shipanga ne fimbo elie fimbo olo lengo bopo de dilirwa ilo tadike dilirwa efimbo atutongo letango la petama ilo etango talikatongolo omo bamutachola ningina ilo talika ningina omwatu yatutokerwe nishe tutemenyo malupale tupwikine ni kucha aye o hatukaba hungire nine kutenga no ngaipi no monena oigere fema yaninga oyo injina yokweta oipopiwa nenge engano tushive tuhungile shetu shive tuhuhurukwe ko igere fem no lwapo icho igere fem oyo shiwana no shiwana osho igere fem na tumpopi fesha tuntoke ruifa o momafiko elia hamano mwejonti yali otampopi fa kudila mundango ya shini meshimvura atupopi fa ovaleri pendo todayo loka ovafimane kwa penele nenele ova na ilonga ilo ova yanjivo ilonga amusheo twenkunda no twempopi fa kudilila mosasiona yoma kufiku fimanene yona ya tala keshe pramwe oigere fema